All right, hello and welcome to episode 27 of A Few Good Mics. Your host Thomas Mooney, along with Nate Wall
Ew.
and Garb.
Hey, it's been a while, but I'm back.
Yeah, a lot to talk about tonight. You got a fucking pretty stacked weekend of sports, but even a stacked day today. We'll start off with what just came out a little over an hour ago. The newest rankings of the college football playoff poll came out, which saw the top four as Clemson, Auburn at 2, Oklahoma 3, and the Badgers coming in at 4 with Alabama and Georgia on the outside looking in. Um, I guess I'll ask you guys this from the start. What do you have any initial? What's your initial reaction to the poll? Whoever wants to start first can go.
I'll start. I think Auburn getting a two is kind of blows my mind. I mean, they you can argue that they have two losses. They're the only two-loss team out of the four. The one loss came to Clemson, the other loss came to LSU, who's been kind of in and out of the top 25. So not really. They kind of hit their mark. At a good time at the end of the year. However, two losses and be a two seed. What are these teams with one loss playing for? I mean, it's really one of those things that, it's
Yeah,
all
just
right.
ignore the sirens in the background.
But I think Auburn should have been probably at four. They should have put Wisconsin at three, and I would have been fine with Oklahoma at two, because their only bad loss is Iowa State, and they were like a 15 when that happened. So Clemson. I think they got it right, even though they. This is why I don't podcast out on my balcony. But yeah, one seed for Clemson to lose to Syracuse is, I think.
Right.
All right.
Mike, Nate, I'm gonna stop you right there. And I'm muting your ass until we get that siren out of the way. Garb, you're up.
All right, sounds good. So, just kind of looking at it from my perspective, I don't believe since the playoff started, a two-loss team has made the playoff. But when you look at what Auburn's done, I say right now they are the best team in the country. I mean, had a lot of quality wins. I mean, they beat Bama, they beat Georgia, both of which were number one. Yeah, they have a few of those losses, but that finish was strong. I'm still a little caught up on Clemson with their loss to Syracuse, but that loss came, 6-7 weeks ago? So that team that lost then is much different than now. Now, Oklahoma has the best player in the country. I'm not a Baker Mayfield fan, but he is. He's got a lot of that charismatic issue that he's got off the field, but what he does in the field makes sense why Oklahoma's number 3. And then 4 at Wisconsin, they've done exactly what they're supposed to do. Yeah, you want to talk about the lack of schedule, but look at Bama. They don't really have much of a strong schedule either. And yet Wisconsin has done exactly what they're supposed to do, and they've won every single game. Well, you didn't schedule or have enough of a tough schedule, but they did exactly what they're supposed to do. Like I said earlier in our text, I wouldn't have been surprised if they put them at 5 just because it's Wisconsin. And because of that, I think they put Bama at 5. If Wisconsin loses to Ohio State, I don't see them putting Ohio State in the top 4 because of the Iowa loss. That puts them in prime position to put Alabama in that number 4 spot. Now, I think Georgia's going to end up beating Auburn, but I think the top 4 is as best as what they could do with what happened over this past weekend. And the way that Miami went down to Pittsburgh, it's just kind of a crapshoot at that point. It's almost picking names out of a hat. Did the best with what they could. This weekend's really going to put a whole new mix to what eventually will be our semifinalists.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what you said there, especially on like Wisconsin. Because Wisconsin and Alabama basically have the same schedule, right? And the same results. Like they're obviously Bama has that one loss, and Wisconsin's undefeated, but they, other than I guess Georgia and Auburn, Bama hasn't played anybody. I mean, LSU's not good. Mississippi State, Michael say that's a good win, but they have 4 losses now. I don't care what you say about that. That's not as good a win as people might say it is. And at least Wisconsin doesn't schedule FCS schools.
Yeah.
So that's almost like a bye. You might as well schedule a bye, like not schedule anybody. I might give Bama more respect for putting a bye week ahead of Auburn.
One thing I want to say, and I'm kind of saying this on Mike's behalf since he's not here. Yeah, Bama blew some of these teams out of the water. It's undeniable that they killed some of these teams. But look at how Wisconsin ends some of their games. I think we finished off Nebraska with 23 consecutive rushing attempts, all to just take a knee at the goal line. Wisconsin's not a team that they're going to run the score up on you, where Alabama, they will put you in the ground. But the reason why they're doing it is because these teams just aren't that good. And I think the only thing really benefiting them this year is that they are Alabama. I think that's solely the only thing that's going to keep them in the mix.
Yeah, it's like the committee's basically saying it's like, oh, it's Alabama, of course. They've been good. That obviously means they are good, no matter what their record is.
Yeah.
And that they're just propping up a bunch of SEC schools. Like, how the hell is Mississippi State ranked with 4 losses? That's a joke to me. Is that I don't and then you look at teams like LSU, the teams that they're ahead of. Would they would lose to Oklahoma State, who they're ahead of? Oklahoma State's got a high-powered offense.
Well, I think so many people get caught up on SEC.
Yeah, the SEC's not the best conference anymore.
No,
unless you're in the top 2, and even then, I think Georgia was overrated from the start too.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit, but you take Alabama out of that mix, the SEC is nothing. I mean, yeah, Auburn's really come up over these last month, but no one really looks at what the Big 12 has done. Nobody gives the Big Ten enough credit. Granted, the West and the Big Ten is fairly weak. There's a lot of quality football coming out of those conferences, but everyone is just all about the SEC.
Yeah, it's more of the SEC bias, which we've seen the last decade, and of course they earned it, but not in the last few years they haven't. And I
got something else I want to say, but I want to get Nate back in on this first. Let him get his word in here before we take everything up.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm with you guys too. I mean, the SEC has always been the conference that everyone's like, oh, the SEC, and it's like it's the most overrated conference in college football. I mean, you look at that, even those top 3 in both of their leagues, and I mean, you still look at it and you're like, okay, you got 3 good teams, maybe 4 good teams out of that. And I agree with you on Mississippi State. I mean, to be ranked, there's plenty of 8-4 teams that are a lot stronger than Mississippi State, but a lot of people are going to use they only were within a touchdown against Bama. But I mean, I think that's why they're still kind of in there, because they were kind of leading that game a little bit until Alabama took over. But I'm with you guys on the stance. Auburn has kind of come up in the last 4 or 5 games and kind of made a name for themselves. And I think they're playing the best football in college football as of now. But I mean, when you really look at it, I mean, Big Ten is still not getting respect. I mean, Penn State and Ohio State to fall so far Ohio State, I mean, with losing to Iowa, I mean, that's a nail in the coffin. But I mean, Penn State, I mean, is one of those things that I don't think should have been pushed that far back as far as that. So, I mean, that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at just some of the other SEC schools, like Alabama, their best win is against LSU, who has 3 losses and lost to Troy at home. Get out of here with that. They beat Mississippi State on a last-second drive. They just lost to Ole Miss, who's got 6 losses at home. So I don't know. Both of their top 2 wins are garbage.
But
And
as
the
far as
one good team they faced, Auburn, they were trash.
do you think anything had anything to do with they lost Nick Fitzgerald part of that game? Do you think the outcome would have been different?
I think they lost him in the fourth quarter. Like they might have won the game, but still, I don't think Mississippi State's that good anyway.
Well,
If
one thing I wanted to
Mississippi,
touch on just before you guys were talking about like Ohio State. The one thing I don't like when you look in later in the rankings with USC, it was 10, and then Ohio State was 9. I think you are not. Yeah, sorry, I'm losing my words here. Ohio State has a terrible loss against Iowa. Yet I think people are giving them so much credit for the comeback win over Penn State that they're not valuing how ugly they looked against a subpar team. And then for that Iowa team to come to Camp Randall, to put up a total of 66 yards and get 0 third down converts, I don't know why everyone's so stuck on Ohio State. That loss against Iowa should completely eliminate them from any sort of playoff contention, even if they win the Big Ten, just because of how ugly they looked. Now, I know the whole season shouldn't be set on just one game, but we're going to, not us, but in general, look at every team individually. That needs to be a huge asterisk against Ohio State in becoming one of the top 4 if they get past the Badgers on Saturday.
I think Ohio State does. I wouldn't have been surprised at all, because I put this in the text too. If like I was a bit surprised by Auburn at 2, but not really, just because of what they've done the last 3 weeks. But I wouldn't have been surprised if they even put Wisconsin at 2. I know they've been like underrating them the whole year, but just to sort of prop up, just in case Ohio State did win, they would have a reason to put Ohio State into it. Sort of like how they've been propping up the lower SEC schools to prop up Alabama. You know? But I'll go back and just make one last point on the SEC. I think Bama, like, it doesn't matter. They still need more than one thing to happen. Like, they need Wisconsin to lose, and then I guess, depending on how the SEC championship game goes, I think they would need Oklahoma to lose too. Because let's say Georgia beats Auburn in a close game. Would you put and then Wisconsin loses? You could make a case that Georgia and Auburn should be in there over Alabama.
Possibly, but
just because Georgia would have the SEC title, and then Auburn handled Alabama when they faced off.
The only thing I'd have against it is I just don't see the committee putting a 3-loss team.
Yeah, that's the only hang-up. But
that's impossible.
If you're putting them at 2,
yeah, I know what you're getting at.
You're leaving that door open.
But that's like back in 2014 when TCU did exactly what they were supposed to do at number 4, and then they dropped 2 spots, or maybe 1. But like they won their game. They did what they were supposed to do to hold their spot. No, they were at 3, dropped down to 5. So I can see them putting Auburn there at 2, losing and giving them the 5th or the 6th spot just because they're not going to want to have that 3-loss team there. But
yeah, I think it'd be hard too. And then I'll get this out of the way too. I tweeted this before, like about an hour, like half an hour ago, regarding Alabama. If you don't, or any team really, if you don't make it to your conference title game, if you can't even get there, you don't deserve to be in the top 4.
Well, and it's funny to hear that I heard Saban come out this week, or a while ago. He's like, well, back when Ohio State got in and didn't play in the Big Ten Conference Championship, he's like, well, I think you have to play in your Big Ten Conference Championship in order to get in the top 4. And now what is he? He's on the other side of the card. He's like, oh, shit, we're not going to get in because we're not getting in the championship. Eat your fucking words, Nick Saban.
And what happened when they put Ohio State in last year, even though they didn't make the title game? They got blown out 31-0 to Clemson. It's like they didn't deserve to be in, and they put them in anyway, and they got embarrassed. Ohio State and the committee. And I'll say another thing too. I know I mentioned that Auburn and Georgia could possibly get in. Like in the end, I don't think it'll happen either, just because of what I said a couple weeks ago. That one of the reasons why they made the playoff was, you remember the LSU Alabama rematch game for the national title
Yes.
Yeah.
that ended up being a total fucking dud. 'Cause I don't think they'll
Alabama.
ever put two teams from the same conference in the playoff. Just because of that reason, they made a huge mistake with that. Well, letting that happen. I know it was computer rankings that did that, but
Well, and you gotta look at it this way too. Like with the SEC, if they put two SEC teams, I mean, with the committees spread out from all over the country. If they put two SEC teams in the playoffs, they're not going to get much viewership from the rest of the country if they only have two teams that aren't in the SEC. That's my opinion. I think there are teams that have. I think if they want the viewership, for people to actually watch these playoff games, we will either way. But there are some people that won't. If you're in the Pac-12 or Big 12 and your conference isn't represented, you're not. They're not going to make the money. And I think in order to have a nationwide viewing of these games, they gotta the committee needs to say, okay, we go one SEC, one Big 12, one Big 10, and people will watch. It's all about the money, baby.
yeah, and they'd only be able to get away with that if one of those teams happened to be Alabama, just because you're going to watch Alabama to root against Alabama.
Right, exactly, like all of us.
Because that's the only SEC brand that's an actual national brand, and that has staying power. So, yeah, I don't know how much more I can go off into this. You think Miami has a chance to get in if they beat Clemson?
I don't, because I think that loss to, I mean, you can argue that loss to Syracuse that Clemson has is significant, but you also look at the loss of when it happened. Miami, if they're really the number 2 team in the country, they shouldn't be losing to Pitt by 10. And I think they were even losing by even more than that. So I mean, Pitt has always been a team that's always been a sneaker. I think they actually beat Clemson. It was either last year or the year before. I can't remember which year it was, but I mean, just kind of a stinker. I think Clemson was number 2 at that time, but they're kind of the stinker team to get teams out of either the top 4 or put them back. So I mean, I don't think Miami gets in. I just don't. The ACC is just not capable of getting in over. I don't see that anywhere where they get in over Clemson.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a chance. Miami needs a lot of help, and by a lot of help, I mean all top 4 lose. Clemson, Auburn, Wisconsin, and Oklahoma. They all are going to have to lose for there to be a chance for Miami to move themselves into any sort of position.
Yeah. So, and then I think we can both agree that the Pac-12 is out too, seeing as how they're ranked. USC's at 10, Stanford's at 12.
Yeah, with USC being behind Ohio State, there is no chance for them to get in front. Even with Ohio State losing and USC winning, there's no point.
Yeah,
they wouldn't put them at
team.
Well,
the only team with 2 losses that really has a shot is Auburn, obviously, since they're in the driver's seat for the SEC.
I mean, I look at how USC's played against decent opponents too. I mean, I watched that game against Notre Dame and they got absolutely demolished in South Bend, and I just don't, and they barely beat UCLA a couple weeks ago. So I mean, I just don't see USC a scenario where they could get in, especially like you said with Ohio State in front. Ohio State is going to get in before USC. So.
Yeah, that's.
go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead first.
I was just going to say, just because we're kind of going on this, are we throwing out predictions for these weekend games too, or no?
Yeah, let's go ahead. We got the conference title games on our side here, but for the ACC championship, you got Miami and Clemson. Who you got?
I got Clemson. I don't think Miami. I think Clemson puts the dagger in Miami's hearts and ruins their potential. The U is back.
If Miami would have came into this game undefeated, I'd have picked Miami all day. But I think with that loss to Pitt, I think it's just taken all of their fight out of them. And Clemson's just playing so well right now. I don't see Clemson giving up this game.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll go with Clemson. I think, they just look so bad against Pitt. And I think most people thought they were a year away anyway. But they'll be right back up there next year. But, yeah, that's the end. Their Cinderella story, I guess, is pretty much over now. Let's go Auburn and Georgia. SEC title game. That'd be played in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome.
Chick-fil-A will be open.
Yep, played on a Saturday.
I'm gonna go with Auburn. I just think Georgia is very one-dimensional. If you could stop Nick Chubb, you got the money in the bag. I think Auburn's got a really good defense, and that'll show them on Saturday. Auburn will be victorious.
Yeah, I'm going with Georgia. I think Georgia learned a lot from their loss to Auburn. I think they're going to be coming in this game with that sense of revenge, and they know that pretty much winning they're in. I think Georgia finally gets that chance to be in this playoff. I'm taking Georgia.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Nate here and go with Auburn. I think for the reasons that he stated, their defense is up there with Wisconsin and the best in the country. You got obviously Auburn has their starting running back hurt, but they're not one-dimensional like Georgia is. I mean, their quarterback is sort of like what the Badgers have with Hornibrook. You don't want him really throwing the ball if you don't have to. So if you can sort of put a handle on the running game, you sort of got him beat. And yeah, I think just Auburn, they're rolling on all cylinders right now. So I got Auburn in that one. Next one, you got TCU and Oklahoma. An Oklahoma loss would likely put the Big 12 out of the playoff. Oklahoma's got the best offense in the country and the Heisman favorite. So who do you have there? I think that will be played. I think it's at Cowboy Stadium.
It's at the Jerry Dome, I think.
Yeah, Jerry Dome. Thought so.
I'm going to go with Oklahoma. Just because TCU, I mean, I've noticed throughout the year I don't know if they have some disciplinary issues with Kenny Trill or whatever the deal is, but it just seems like he's in and out every week. I mean, they sat him for like disciplinary reasons a couple weeks ago. It's like I don't see TCU. I always thought they were going to be the weakest link in the Big 12 as far as in the top, as far as top 15 goes, as far as teams. But I mean, I think Oklahoma will win. It'll be a typical Big 12, no defense, kind of like the Oklahoma State game with over 100 points of offense. But that's just how the Big 12 is. So I'm going with OU.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And I was going to say the same thing. It's going to be a heavy offensive game, but I think Baker Mayfield is going to have himself another game. It's going to be high scoring, but at the end of the day, I can see Oklahoma walking away. Wouldn't be surprised if they win by over 2 touchdowns either. I just think they're too strong and too high-powered for TCU to stop.
Yeah, I'll make it a clean sweep. I mean, when Auburn played TCU the last time, and TCU had the number 6 defense in the country, and Baker Mayfield picked them apart. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield with a lot of the sort of, I guess, the attacks on him the last week after which I think was a little overblown what he did on the field, but I think he's going to take that to put that on his shoulder, and then he'll take it out on TCU again and sort of put the final stamp on his Heisman campaign. Do you guys want to talk about USC Stanford, since that doesn't have much of a?
I'm just gonna say something. I got Stanford. As I tweeted out earlier this year, Mooney doubted me. Sam Darnold is irrelevant. Josh Rosen is definitely better than Sam Darnold. But I think Bryce Love is a hell of a running back. I think he's going to kind of run all over that. USC has a subpar defense. I've seen a lot of USC football, with the barely beating Texas, getting squashed by Notre Dame. I just don't think they have it in them. I think Stanford will win.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Stanford's affected because they got those 3 losses, but I think Stanford's the better team. Bryce Love's going to have himself a game. It's probably going to be close, but I put my money on Stanford in this game.
Then I'll go with the opposite side. I'll take USC. I don't know a whole lot about either team really, just because I never watched the Pac-12. But
it's too late.
Yeah, they're on late, man. Chris Peterson was right. No one watches them. But I mean, I still Darnold's still going to be a top quarterback prospect in the draft, no matter what.
Not the first.
He probably won't go number 1, but he'll go number 2. But that aside, I think, the last time they played Stanford this year was in week 2, but they beat them by 18. I know it's not the same thing, but USC has won 4 in a row. And I think this game is on home turf pretty much at the Rose Bowl, right? So I know USC's pretty much got home field advantage. I think they win again. No stats behind it, but just a gut feeling. So now the final game, the one that we'll all be waiting for, 7 p.m. Central Time at Lucas Oil. You got the Badgers and Ohio State. Badgers trying to avenge their 59-0 loss, a game that me and Garb attended. That shit show.
Hey, we stood strong. So many people left. We waited till the end.
Did. We stayed through the whole game, as tough as it was.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever get OHIO out of our heads.
No. I will forever hate that chant. Forever. But I'm going to lead it off on this one.
Who you got?
And I'm taking Ohio State. I think it's going to be similar to what we saw in 2014. If that defense is able to contain the run, their corners are going to play well up, and I don't trust Hornibrook to win the game with his arm. I've seen what Urban Meyer is able to do. He's smart. He's calculated. We rely way too much on our run game and Jonathan Taylor, that if we need Hornibrook to win the game for us, I just don't trust in him. As much as I'm going to cheer for Wisconsin, there's no doubt that I'm a fan. I just don't think that we have enough against them to defeat them. I think they're going to shut us down.
You know what? Okay, Nate, you go first. I need some.
Quick question: does anybody know if JT Barrett's going to be playing on Saturday?
As far as I know, he will be playing.
Okay,
yeah, he says he's ready, but there's nothing official. But he says he's going to be ready.
I just heard Urban Meyer went full-blown investigation on him, so I want to double-check. I think Bucky's going to be doing a lot of Ohio State moms on Saturday. I think I think defense will hold strong. I'm kind of with Garb on the Hornibrook thing. Everyone can say, oh, he showed a little poise against Minnesota, but it's Minnesota. Like, we've had the Axe 15 years now. So it's really one of those things. If he can do what he did against Minnesota, I have total faith in that offense. And Taylor can kind of maintain and not fumble, because Ohio State will make you pay. I think we'll win. It'll be really close. I really do. I think it'll be like in the 20s, probably a 3-point game. But I think we'll get them and get it done.
No, and I got the Badgers too. Do you look at the just comparing from this year to 2014? I mean, they went into a completely unknown situation with Cardale Jones. They didn't know what to expect. I don't think anyone did. So that was his first game starting, and no one thought the number 3 quarterback at Ohio State was that good. So I think that sort of took them by surprise, and then once they got down, they could never recover. But JT Barrett, I don't think like he's fine, but I don't think he's all that great. And you look at Wisconsin's defense, they're number 1 in the country in rush defense, and they're number 3 in the country in passing defense. So they can shut any offense down. And then you compare that to Ohio State. I mean, their rush defense is 13th in the country. They give up 112 yards per game. And I mean, that should be Jonathan Taylor usually gets that in a half against teams. So the game's going to be all about, I'm sure, clock management like the Badgers usually do. But I think the defense is good enough this year where they can hold Ohio State to a manageable number.
Please, I hope I'm wrong. I'm just playing what I think is logical and statistical, right. But please, I really hope I'm wrong. I just have that feeling.
Like I'll tell you right now, I'm scared as hell of that game. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if it went your way. I wouldn't be shocked if it went completely the other way and the Badgers are shown to be a fraud, but I don't think they are.
This is a different year than 2014.
Yeah, they're definitely better than that 2014 team that we saw. I mean, Cardell Jones lit it up. Joey Bosa was just a monster on defense. We were completely just dismantled. I know it's a different setup. I know it's a completely different situation. Urban Meyer and Ohio State just always scare me. It's just one of those situations that I just get scared of. But we'll see. Saturday is definitely going to be exciting, and depending on what happens, Sunday will be just as fun.
And I'm not sure if I'm sure I've gotten your. We've talked about this in the chat, but we got Gus Johnson on the call, so that should be.
Should be eventful, to say the least.
That should be fun. Yeah, I just hope that it goes our way like we did against Nebraska a few years ago. And one thing, the Badgers this year, they had 12 conference All-Americans on defense. Like when you combine the coaches and the media poll, 12 nominations for defense led the conference. So
nice.
They're pretty fucking good. All right, so that is our reaction and I guess the bowl game or conference championship preview. We'll move on to the NFL news of the day. We'll talk about this, I'm sure, fairly quickly. Eli Manning was benched for Geno Smith. That ends the 200-game starting streak, only behind the one and only Brett Favre. Don't be too proud, Garb. You still need to do 87 starts. Good 7 seasons.
As I've talked on here before, I've never been an Eli fan. I was never really concerned that record was going to get touched. Favre lives on for another day, probably forever. But I'm surprised. I am thoroughly surprised that the Giants are taking Eli out and putting in Geno Smith. My God, what is going on in that organization?
Fucking Geno.
Like, really? What the hell?
Like, if you're going to bench the guy, and I would get the benching, just because all other aspects they would make sense for the situation. Just because you got a coach on the hot seat, trying to get coach for his job, and the GM, while he's made some right moves, this season's been a total failure. And you got an aging quarterback. So you're trying to look toward the future, right? The only thing they're missing is that other guy. And I want to talk about that, all the outrage I saw on Twitter today. I tweeted it, a good 90% of it, at least, is only because Geno is the guy that's replacing him.
Michael Rappaport just flipped out. He was so irate about this decision.
Fuck Michael Rappaport.
I don't like Michael Rappaport either.
It doesn't matter if you like him or not, but the guy's got a lot of good points.
He's a New York guy, so I understand.
I'm just pointing it out. Just pointing it out.
But yeah, I'm with you, Garb, too. It's like I'll defend sort of his, I guess what you would call like, not maybe not his legacy, but like his 2 Super Bowl wins. But right now, like Eli Manning's hasn't been good either. Like how many times in the last few years have we said that they've won in spite of Eli Manning's play?
Well, that's the thing.
So this was a long time coming. It's just that Geno Smith is the guy that's replacing him.
Yeah, like Eli hasn't been at that top caliber for a few years now. Everyone knows that. It's kind of been, I mean, granted, some could say it's because of the team around him. It's neither here nor there. I just think that, one, the timing of it, and then 2, the replacement just adds on to how bad it really is.
Yeah. Is that Nate, what are your
but
I mean, I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard to not be pro Eli in this situation. I mean, granted, I agree with what Louis said. Eli hasn't been their touching point the last couple years. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, he's a franchise guy. He's the guy that they've built that franchise around for how many years? And I mean, to make an impulsive move to Geno Smith, like it's not like I can understand if it's like some young gun, rookie or second-year guy. All right, you want to test them out. You want to test your waters and see what you got for the future. But Geno fucking Smith, guy that has been nothing but unproven in this league, and you're going to go switch it up and go with Geno fucking Smith. I'll say it 5 times. No, I won't. But it's one of those things, I mean, the Giants, I mean, like you said, McAdoo's coaching for his job. I think the reason why this is so blown out of proportion is because that's what New York football is. If there's ever something that goes down, if there's ever a scandal, it's always New York that blows it out of proportions with the New York Times and whatever and all the sports guys you got in that city. So, I mean, I think that has something to do with it, but the other side, I just can't believe that they would, I mean, I think you look back, I mean, you look at those 2 Super Bowls now, you're like, oh shit, you got benched. You look at the end of your career, like, oh shit, I got benched for Geno Smith. Like, that's how people are gonna remember Eli at the end of his career. Like, he got benched for, I mean, Geno fucking Smith. That's all I got.
Yeah, I don't think they'll remember him for that. I think they might talk about it, but they'll remember the 2 Super Bowls. I think that's against Brady and the Patriots. That's going to be his lasting legacy. Like, sure, you got benched for Geno, but I mean, a bunch of other older quarterbacks like that have gotten replaced sometimes. So, but I made a couple predictions on Twitter today, and when I put in the group chat, I wanted to see what you guys think of them. One that the Giants, I think they're number 4 in the NFL draft order right now. I think they trade up to number 2 with San Francisco, since they have Garoppolo, to take either whatever's left of Darnold or Rosen, whoever doesn't get taken number 1. And that number 2, you've heard it a bunch, probably seen a bunch of it on Twitter already, probably, but that Eli ends up being in Jacksonville next year.
Because of Tom Coughlin, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And they need a quarterback, so.
But Blake Bortles is elite.
Yeah, says who?
Says my dud of fantasy football from whatever the hell episode that was from.
So what do you guys think about those?
Well, no, that makes sense.
Any quick thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Garb.
I was going to say, I think that makes sense. I think this move, if anything, solidifies that New York is going to be looking for a new quarterback. And I know that Kaiser has struggled in Cleveland. I don't see them going for a quarterback with the number 1 spot. I mean, right now the Giants are 3. So I can easily see them doing a flip with San Fran and the Giants doing a flip, but at the same time, San Fran's got Garoppolo, and yeah, he only played for 2 or 3 downs. He looked not bad for only being there for a couple of weeks. So I can see the Giants, if it pans out the way it is right now, to stay at that number 3 slot because there's no reason for the 2 above them to go after a quarterback.
See, I'm the opposite. I think Cleveland's going to take a quarterback because I don't think the front. It's the way the season's gone and the way like all the pressure. And I guess that I know I've been on the bandwagon that they signed 5-year deals and they're only after their second year they're going to be there. But the way they've passed on quarterbacks has been such a disaster that they can't, even if it's the same front office and coaching staff, they're not going to pass on a quarterback in the first round another year.
And that, as much as that makes sense, I get it. But look at the ones they have drafted; they haven't panned out. They got to give a guy more than 1 year. Now I know when you look at the Browns being 0-11 right now, it's hard to argue that, but it's you got to give. Bless you. You got to give a guy more than a year to get himself set up because even if they do pick a guy. If the Browns take guy number 1, not like they're going to get a lot out of him in that first year. So, I mean, yeah, they really screwed up on letting Wentz go to Philly, and yeah, they've made some bad drafts with quarterbacks. But at some point, you got to give a guy more than a chance, and maybe some people argue 16 games is enough. I know Kaiser he's had his ups and downs, but at the same time, I think there's a lot more that's wrong with that team than just solely quarterback play.
Yeah, and I think things could change in the next few weeks, especially with Josh Gordon coming back, a sober Josh Gordon.
That will be interesting.
If he ends up showing out and helping Kaiser, and they actually show some rhythm. Then that'll change things. But as of now, I mean, because Hugh Jackson wanted to draft Deshaun Watson. Like it's been on record that he even told Deshaun Watson in the draft, "Get ready for us to take you," and then what do you know? They end up trading the pick against Hugh Jackson's wishes to Houston, and they end up taking Watson. So,
yeah, I did pull up something real quick. I mean, it's obviously early for mock drafts, but kind of backing up what you said, that right now they got Josh Rosen going to Cleveland, Barkley going to San Fran. And then Sam Darnold going to Giants. So we'll see what happens over these last couple of weeks, what the actual true order will be.
Yeah, and the only reason why I'm saying they'll trade up is because obviously San Fran has Garoppolo, and even if he didn't play, even if Garoppolo didn't play a single down this year, they still wouldn't take a quarterback at 2 because they'd either sign him long term for the future or they just place a franchise tag on him. So either way, Garoppolo is going to be the guy next year.
Yep.
And they would trade up to 2 because you look at the teams behind the Giants. Like, you never know if the Jets might want to trade up to 2.
All right. Yeah, no, I'm getting what you're getting now. That makes more sense. I'm starting to understand it.
So the only reason they trade up to 2 is to block other teams from trading up to 2 and getting their guy.
Yeah. And realistically, in San Francisco, if you think about it, probably get another pick or 2 out of them, and why not give it up? You're only moving down 1.
Yeah, and you look at I don't think it'll take what Chicago did last year, because that was a fucking stupid trade still.
Oh, yeah.
Trading up from 3 to 2 and giving up all they did, but because you got to think the Giants, even how they've sort of mishandled the season, that they're not stupid enough to know that San Francisco doesn't need a quarterback and take and trade a lot to get that number 2. So I guess that's all we got pretty much for that. Next up, I'm trying to look back at the topics we got. You guys want to talk quick about the Packer game on Sunday night?
I mean, what else is there to say? We're all pretty much fed up with Dom Capers. I'm fed up with the play calling. I'm losing ability to continue defending Mason Crosby. Welcome, Michael.
Hot take.
It's becoming, as a fan, it's become frustrating. And I know I'm going to say this real quick because Pittsburgh this entire year has been a team that plays to the level of their opponent. I mean, look at them every game. No matter who they're playing against, they play at their level. They lost in overtime to Chicago. It's confusing as a fan to see us get shut out at home, of all things, against the Ravens, and then to go into Heinz Field and lead and statistically play the better game, but then lose. It's just so confusing how you can just have this up and down. Now I don't know if that's because it's Pittsburgh and they don't know what they're going to do until they start the game on a Sunday, but it's become irritating knowing that our whole success falls literally on the arm of one guy, which it's not good for continued success. I thought coming in with that injury with Rodgers, like Hundley's the guy. He's going to do well. Been there for 2 years. He knows the system. He's worked well with Aaron. I thought we had chances to win. And there hasn't been. There's been a few glimpses of hope. He knows what he's doing, but at the same time, it's few and far between. He's oblivious to pressure. He doesn't give his receivers a chance. I mean, specifically in that Ravens game, he took a sack on a 4th down. Throw the damn ball. Give your guy a chance. If he gets picked off, it's a punt.
Yep.
You got to know those type of situations. Now, I know it's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback it and pick and choose what I want to talk about, but it's just irritating that because we lost one guy, pretty much the entire season was lost with him. And I think that shows that it puts a lot of pressure on McCarthy keeping his job. Obviously, Capers, we all have the same thoughts in him. Another thing that Mike would have brought up at this point is over the past 2 seasons, we've let guys go, and then they go to lead the league in interceptions the following year with their new teams. Guys, we just don't know how to utilize them. And obviously, building through the draft is not long-term success. Go out there and spend some money on a guy who over the past 3 years has proven he is a star athlete. I'm not saying you got to go and spend your entire cap room, but go and get a guy who's shown that, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I can help you succeed. It's nice when you get someone out of the draft, but more often than not, our number 1 and number 2 picks end up getting shipped off anyway because they're not that good. Clear house. Get them out.
Yeah, and I'm looking at I noticed this during the game, is that they still don't let Brett Hundley throw down the field. It's all screen passes. And they just got lucky that Randall Cobb happened to be wide open and that Jamal Williams ended up breaking a screen pass for 60 yards. And that resulted in 2 of their touchdowns. And I'm looking at the stats here. This is from NFL.com. This is average air yards per attempt, like how far the ball travels in the air before it's caught. So instead of using like the average like yards per pass.
Yep.
That sort of skews it a bit with the yards after catch. Brett Hundley was the third lowest in the league last week. This last week. And you look at the guys ahead of him, like other worse quarterbacks are getting chances to throw the ball deep. Deshaun Kaiser was 2nd. Trevor Siemian was 3rd. Josh McCown, they let throw the ball downfield. Mitch Trubisky, Blaine Gabbert, like Tom Savage averages 9 air yards per attempt compared to Hundley's 6.5. And the only guys Hundley's above is Matt Moore and Alex Smith. Like, he's been there for 3 years and you still don't trust him to throw the ball. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, if you were any good of a coach, you'd have him coached up by now in 3 years. So, I don't know. I've ranted enough on the Packers and McCarthy and Capers and Thompson. So, and I know Nate has too. We spent pretty much 30 minutes last couple weeks ago after.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what loss it was, but.
And like you were saying the other day, Mooney, sadly, I think the loss to Cleveland would be the nail in the coffin, but God, please, no, don't go to Cleveland and lose. I don't
I don't want to hear from any other fan base for the rest of my life if we lose to Cleveland.
But I mean, I think that is exactly what we're talking about. If we want that to happen with them getting rid of these people, the loss in Cleveland, especially if it's their first win, almost is the automatic.
Because if we say they're 7-9 and they're only a couple games out of a playoff spot, they'll just say, "Oh, they just didn't have their injuries. Oh, Clay Matthews was hurt. Aaron Rodgers was hurt. Aaron Jones was hurt. Ty Montgomery was the first-year running back." Like all they do is make up excuses for these guys' poor jobs. Like Dom Capers, there's injuries, yes, but every team has injuries. And they play good for the last 3 weeks of the season into the playoffs, and that saves Capers' job. And you look at other teams with their quarterbacks went down. Fuck, Minnesota's had 3 different quarterbacks, and they're still good. And that's with Mike Zimmer as their head coach, as a defensive guy. Like, get out of here. Mike McCarthy.
And not even that. Their starting running back, Delvin Cook, went out with an ACL injury, and they continue to succeed. And not just simple success, they are dominating teams.
They turned Adam Thielen into a top 10 receiver.
And he was undrafted.
Like,
correct. Yeah, it's amazing what they've done.
And with Brett Hundley, we can't have Jordy Nelson get more than 3 catches in a game. That's such garbage. Such garbage.
The one positive I will say is I've really liked the development of Devontae Adams over the past year and a half.
Yep.
His rookie year he came in was great. I liked him, and then he had his struggles. A lot of simple drop passes, a lot of games that were totally his fault that we lost, but he dropped the ball in key situations. But I will say that man has stepped up, especially in the absence of Aaron. I mean, week in and week out now, he's a pretty solid, going to get you 80 to 100 yards, possibly touching every game. And he's clutch. He's consistent, and you can rely on him. And I really wish we used Jordy more. I mean, the guy's still great. But I think that the way that Adams has played, he's really proven himself to be a wide receiver to be reckoned with defensively.
I think the Packers really will need to pay that man, end of the season, or they got to lock him up, because I think he's going to be the real deal in the next 5 to 7 years for the Packers. He's going to be our number one guy. I think, in order to, regardless of the situation, you don't hear him throwing a freaking temper tantrum like Marty did, where he needed to leave fuck town. He just freaking, he rolled with the punches. I don't care what kind of quarterback I got, I'm going to do it. And he's made Hundley look good. He's made himself look really good, because it's one of those things. I mean, you can say the same with Thielen. It doesn't matter what quarterback gets thrown at you, as long as you're productive. That's what it's all about. I think the Packers need to lock up Adams for long term. I think that would be really smart.
Yeah, and that goes back to last year when he was, I think, but he led the league in touchdown receptions. It just puts you at a confidence level where
Jordy was one
out there, and Jordy was one, but he was right there, probably in the top 5 at least.
Yeah, Jordy had 14. I think Adams was second at 12.
Yeah, so that just puts you at, like, you can do anything on the football field, no matter who's a quarterback, and that does a lot, because receiver is a lot about confidence too, just like quarterbacks are. So, I think that last year had a lot, like, in the step, and he's just keeping it up.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to a couple more quicker topics, I guess. A couple of college football coaching vacancies got filled. You got Chip Kelly at UCLA, and you got Dan Mullen at Florida. I want to ask you guys quick, who's going to have more success at that job?
I think it'll be Chip Kelly. Mainly because he's been in the pack. I mean, well, okay, that's not really good because the other guy. I think Chip Kelly was a winner when he was at Oregon. And then he decided, I want to go to the NFL, and it didn't work out. I think it's a lot easier to win in the Pac-12 than the SEC. So I mean, I think Kelly will do well at UCLA. I mean, Mullen. I mean, he's kind of going from Mississippi State to Florida. I mean, it's really honestly, I would say either a even grade or a downgrade because I think Mississippi State, regardless of what Mooney has to say about them, I don't think that they're I think they're a better team than Florida is. And I mean, yeah, you have a lot larger recruiting base with Florida than you do Mississippi State, and then you don't have to compete with as much with like Alabama and LSU and whatnot. But I still think that Mullen will do. I think it'll take him a couple years, but I think he'll do okay. I don't think it's like a great power coaching move, but I think Chip Kelly has the upper hand in that one.
I'm going to be straight up on this. I don't, right off the top of my head right now, I don't know a lot about Mullen. I think he's going to benefit in the sense of, I think Florida pulls in more of that national attention. It's got the name behind it, the history, versus UCLA. That's it. Florida's got a lot of it. But the name game wise, I think Florida's going to help him. However, I think Chip Kelly, back where he needs to be, he is a college coach. He showed in the NFL that he isn't able to do it well. And I think he'll do better at UCLA because he has players come in and they go. They come, they go. It's not a matter of bringing players in and maintaining success with the same group of people over 5-10 years. And he went to Philadelphia, took that team and shipped them back 5 years in the past with all the moves he did. He really took a team that was poised for possible success and took it all away. Where you put him in a college setting, you recruit, you bring the guys in you want, they're going to do well for you, and they're going to go to the draft. They're not going to do well, and you kind of move on, you forget about them. So I think Chip is going to have a better chance to succeed, but I think Mullen may have a little more success in the sense of being able to bring more top-tier players, because it is SEC, and it's Florida. It's just the whole name game.
Yeah, and I think, I think Chip Kelly with UCLA too, just because like he knows the area. He's recruited that for his whole career basically, and just because Florida, they're really a mid-level SEC player now, but I do think Dan Mullen can recruit too, just because of how he made Mississippi State a decent school. And I'll disagree with you, Nate, saying that it was maybe even a downgrade. I think it's a big upgrade just because Florida, has the money behind it. And when they're good, that they can recruit. You can recruit to Florida, where even if you're at Mississippi State, you can't recruit as well just because you're always going to be in the recruits know you're never going to get past an Alabama, or even you might not even get past a Tennessee. So, yeah, I mean, Chip Kelly, the Pac-12, USC's been down. Stanford is okay. Like, he can step in probably in the next 2 years, just like what Jim Harbaugh sort of did, and just sort of build a middling program and make them a player, just shorter than everyone would expect. So I would take UCLA.
I do agree with you. I mean, I think Florida's obviously in college football has created more of a legacy than obviously a Mississippi State. So I mean, I agree with you on that point, but I still think, I mean, he'll get his recruits, but I mean, I think he'll get more recruits at Florida, because I think Florida is kind of like, I would say, probably one of the top 5 recruiting pipelines for college football. Even Wisconsin could probably say this because they have a lot of guys from Florida, in the nation. So I think it's an easier recruiting ground than, say, Mississippi or an Alabama or Louisiana.
Yeah. So, and then next, I guess Tennessee still has a job open. We won't get into why, you've all heard that by now. We won't get into the Greg Schiano stuff, but we've seen a couple reports that they're interested in Oklahoma State's Mike Van Gundy.
Gundy, not Van
Or,
Gundy.
not Van Gundy. I heard Van Gundy earlier today. But so, okay, so Mike Gundy, the mullet man. And then they're also looking at, I read Jeff Brom from Purdue and NC State's Dan Doran, as well as the USC offensive coordinator, T. Martin, I think his name is.
I heard him as the offensive coordinator. I also heard Bobby Petrino getting floated around.
Just I even heard that they should bring back Lane Kiffin.
I'd love that.
But would you put your money on I know you want it, Nate. Would you put your money on Mike Gundy going there?
I do, because I think Mike Gundy's done more than enough at Oklahoma State. And I think the mullet would flow well in Knoxville as well. He'd be that suitable, SEC coach that you would expect how he looks. That's just a stupid ass point. But anyway, I think Mike Gundy's done enough in Oklahoma State, and I think his high-powered offense that he's always had, I think would transition well to Tennessee and kind of give Tennessee, an upbringing as well. And I mean, especially if he's willing to bring in T. Martin as offensive coordinator, a guy that knows Tennessee, is quarterback in Tennessee. I think it would definitely be the best move for Tennessee. I don't like the idea of bringing back Kiffin. I mean, as much as I like it, but I don't like it, as well as Brom, because I mean, Brom's been at Purdue 1 year. It's been subpar good, and Kiffin's just still kind of learning his space at Florida Atlantic. So I mean, I don't like the one and done, in college football either, where they coach 1 year and then go to a bigger job. I think Mike Gundy is the most qualified candidate for that job.
Garb, you got anything on it?
No, I don't really got much to talk on that topic. I don't know a lot about the background behind it, so I'm just going to stay out of it.
See, I think I'll go quick just because I don't pay much. I mean, I'll pay some attention to it, but not Tennessee football. But I don't think Mike Gundy's going to leave there just because I think Oklahoma State's a better job, and it's his alma mater, and just the way things have gone. I mean, the AD might be gone, and I think I agree with what a lot of reporters have said. Just they're going to have to get some with Tennessee ties, just because I don't think a lot of people will touch that job. And just because if you don't end up competing for an SEC title in 3 years, you're going to end up being fired, just because that's the way it is with Nick Saban around. So I think he ends up staying there, and they get a relative unknown, I guess, to take the job. But I guess that's it for the big topics. We'll go into our a few good minutes segment. Anything you've seen for the last time that you were on the podcast, now is your time to either vent or just talk about it. We'll go with Nate. You want to go first?
I'll have Garb go first.
All right, Garb. You got anything?
So, I mean, I kind of already had what was going to be my final 2 minutes. So I'll just kind of reiterate what I was going to say. Needs to figure out what they're doing as an organization, as their management. As I mentioned before, building through the draft is not a way that we can continue our success. Look at us. We've had Aaron Rodgers we drafted him in 05, 12 years. Granted, he only started since 08. Yeah, we should have made it back at Super Bowl 49. We blew the game against Seattle. That's the point I'm getting at. One of the best quarterbacks to ever touch the ball in the professional sport has made it to one Super Bowl. Obviously, management is not doing something to help benefit him. McCarthy is a terrible play caller. I understand he obviously knows the sport better than the three of us combined. I'm not taking away his knowledge. I just don't think that his play calling, especially coupled with the younger quarterback in Hundley, give us success. Obviously, it hasn't. Now I don't see it changing in the future here. And then I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe it was Casey Hayward. He left 2 years ago. Following season, led the league in interceptions. Last year, we let go of Micah Hyde at the Bills. At one point, I don't know if he still is or not, was leading the league in interceptions. Obviously, we had defensive players who knew the game and were good at it. He just wasn't able to find a way to have them excel. If that doesn't prove anything to the lack of his inability for his continued success, I don't know what is. I know Caper is in the past one of the best skill-minded defensive coordinators the league has had. I get it. But every coach comes to an end where they just don't have it anymore. I don't think, no matter what happens at this point, Caper should keep his job. I don't expect them to get rid of Thompson. That's just kind of a wishful thinking on my end. The draft. Go after a free agent yourself. Spend a little money. You're going to get wins out of it. And in McCarthy, we obviously got a Super Bowl out of him. Great, but at the same time, change of scenery is needed. I think clearing house is going to be the best way to shift this entire team back into gear. The elites, like the Patriots, and everyone else who is finding ways to succeed. I mean, look at Philadelphia. I didn't want to believe what Nate said about Carson Wentz, but the guy is proving it. I mean, they're such a young team. Doug Peterson has found a way to hone all that together. I think if we get some new management in there, some new coaching, it's the best way that we can really develop a new chemistry that's going to bring future success.
All right, I got one.
All right, Nate, go.
All right, so we're calling for Packers heads. How about we call for the Bucks heads as well? Why the hell are the Bucks 9-9? You got Giannis. You have a great team now. You have Giannis. You have Bledsoe. You have Middleton. You have Thon Makers on the come up. Why are we 500 right now? Like something's not gelling with Jason Kidd, and I can't quite figure out what it is. But I think he's lost his luster, and I mean, not that he really had a luster. I really think that Bucks. I mean, this is the best Bucks team I've seen since Ray Allen, Big Dog, and Tim Thomas and Sam Cassell. I think if we can't win with these guys, we can't play more than 500 ball with these guys. Like it's kind of like the whole thing with we talk about Rodgers. McCarthy's wasting away. Jason Kidd is wasting Giannis away from being obviously he's one of the best players in the NBA, but if he doesn't get that title, he's not considered as elite as a LeBron, as a Kobe, as a Shaq, and whatnot. It's just one of those things to see the Bucks struggle. I mean, they usually do this. They struggle first part of the year and then get their asses going. But to struggle, they made the acquisition to get Bledsoe, which I absolutely love. But it's just one of those things to be right at 500. Hopefully, he should beat the Kings tonight, but who the hell knows? Not saying change needs to be made yet, but Jason Kidd should light a fire under his ass because he's probably on the hot seat. And go Herd, tearing it up in Oshkosh.
Let's see. I'll continue the coaches getting fired trend of this topic, but I'll go with the team that we don't really talk about. I'm going to say the one team that you're going to end up seeing, or backtrack. Talk about why the John Gruden to Tennessee rumors made no sense to me. Just because he's never been a college, he's like, yeah, he'd be great at recruiting, but why would he leave the Monday Night Football job for a college job? If anything, it's going to be for a pro job, which leads me into the next thing, which will be what I think if he ever comes out of the booth, it'll be next year when Dirk Cutter gets fired from being the head coach of the Buccaneers. Obviously, we all thought they'd be a playoff team, right? And they could challenge for the division. As of now, they're going to have a top 5 pick, and they suck. They're at 4-7, and just completely underwhelming. I think Dirk Cutter is going to lose his job. And just from what I saw from Hard Knocks this year, I think John Gruden loves Jameis Winston, and he loves being in Tampa Bay, still lives in Tampa Bay. So, yeah, I think if John Gruden never comes out, it'll be next year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job, or else he's not coming out at all.
I'm still gonna put a little blame on the Hurricane for the reason why the Bucs and Dolphins suck, because those guys have been playing on an empty tank for probably the last 3 weeks now. So I think that, I mean, I don't think that's any excuse because you're NFL players and coaches, you make millions and millions of dollars. But at the same time, it's one of those things, you got to think about those players' fatigue levels, and I feel like, you see Jameis out 3 weeks for an injury that's usually a week. Those guys are gassed. Not much left in the tank for them or the Dolphins.
No. The Dolphins suck because they trusted Jay Cutler to bring them back to the playoffs.
Smoking Jays.
God.
Smoking Jays.
Hey, a lot of people kept.
So that's
everyone not going against you. They all blame him, but the guy was gone, and they offered him $10 million. Why would he not come back?
No, I don't blame Jay Cutler for
him.
coming back. I would expect Jay Cutler to come back for that kind of money. I don't think he never wanted to play, but he even said it.
Yeah.
This during the season, he didn't actually prepare to be an analyst in the booth, which I think would have been hilarious to see.
I would have loved that so much just to listen to him talk.
Yeah, because he's such a passionate guy. Such a passionate guy. He's like the opposite of Gus Johnson. Like no emotion whatsoever.
Just as he prepares, he would prepare less for that job than Nate does for the podcast. And he doesn't do much at all.
I got no prep. Just straight facts on me.
I will say, I do like Romo. Him and Jim Nantz are a great combo.
Oh, Romo, man.
Makes me actually want to watch CBS.
The first game alone proved he was a million times better than Phil Simms ever was.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, I agree with you there.
He relates his knowledge to playing the booth. So many times he's like, run to the left. Watch that blitz coming off the right. And he's right. He's right about it. Yep. And it's so awesome to get that because there's no way we could ever put ourselves in that situation, understand it. But he's allowing viewers like us to experience that, I guess.
Yeah, he's been great.
Also, a side note, I never really noticed how much more I like Fox pregame compared to CBS pregame until this year. I don't know why it took me so long, but CBS is so blah, compared to Fox. So I appreciate Fox, especially Wriggles picks. Those are hilarious every week.
See, I don't watch any pregame shows anymore, so.
I just do Sunday NFL Countdown, then I jump on the Red Zone channel, unless the Packers are playing.
Yep. So unless there's anything you guys want to talk about, anything else that comes to mind? I'll take that as a no. That does it for episode 27 of Good Mics. We'd like to thank you guys for listening to the podcast, whether it's on iTunes or whether you're watching it on YouTube. We will see you next time.
Howdy.
Bye.
Peace.